We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com.
Welcome to this special edition of AVRant. My name is Rob H., and I am here with...
Joe Klusnick, back again.
Yes, indeed. This is our CEDIA 2025 special episode. This is a extra breakout episode this week. You might have noticed there was already an episode with Mr. Lee Overstreet and myself. We went over the 2-hour mark, doing our regular news and catch-up and answering a whole bunch of home theater questions. So, before we dig into this special episode, we haven't talked to Joe Klusnick in a little while. Just what's been going on in your personal life, if there's any updates you wanted to share before we dig into CEDIA.
So I was going to share some things I've been watching. I actually had some stuff in mind. So and it's actually TV shows. So almost on a weekly basis, been watching Alien Earth.
Yes, right.
And then Peacekeeper Season 2 and Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So,
yes.
That's 3 hours of what I consider entertaining programming, and those are all streamed shows. So putting the theater use for that, along with all the other regular movies that we're watching.
All right, and 3 different streaming services, I believe, right? Because you got Paramount Plus for Strange New Worlds, you've got Disney Plus for Alien Earth, and HBO Max for what was that, Peacemaker? So yeah, there you go.
Well, and in the States, it's Hulu that it's on. So yeah.
Okay, gotcha. It's that cross-border Canadian versus U.S. streaming service thing. But all right, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. So as I mentioned, this is almost going to be entirely CEDIA, but I am gonna sneak one home theater question in there because this is AVRant, and we are your home theater and AV questions answered. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is email them to us. Our email address is question@avrant.com. That is by far the best way to get in touch with us. We're just first in, first out when it comes to answering questions via emails, so feel free to send them on in. And this is a special breakout episode. Not going to be a ton of questions, but I'm going to sneak one in there at the very end of this episode, so stay tuned for that. Without any further ado, this is basically going to be kind of a slideshow experience because Joe took himself a whole bunch of photos while he was there at CEDIA. So why don't we start by setting the stage, just get the sort of basics for people who might not be familiar at all with CEDIA. Where was it taking place this year? Our first photo is a pretty good clue.
Yeah, so back to Denver again. I think this is the 3rd year in a row. I think they're going to do one more in Denver, and then I heard discussions of possibly Las Vegas or Anaheim for 2 years from now. Took a quick trip, was there just a day and a half or so, in and out real quick. But so that's me. First morning I was there, and the Big Blue Bear is somewhat of a mascot for that convention center.
Yeah. We got another shot from it from the inside as he's peering in, looking in on everybody inside of the convention center there in Colorado. It's pretty nice.
And that one specifically I took thinking of you because that was a podcast studio van that was parked in the lobby, and you could actually schedule time to go and record down there. So that made it easy for people who were putting shows together on the spot.
All right. So, you had a fun little anecdote about, actually getting in. I heard that entrance into CEDIA this year, normally there's kind of a, you can go there ahead of time and pick up your pass, your badge that lets you in. But that this year they were basically demanding that everybody just kind of line up on the opening day and all go in at once. I'm not exactly sure what that was about, but you have an image of your own badge going in there. But you had a little anecdote that went beyond the normal this year.
Yeah. So on my first day there, I got there early, went to go pick up my attendee badge, and couldn't get in at first. Ended up running into DJ Briggs as he was on his way to a press event, and I'm like, well, how'd you get your press badge? He's like, well, you just, get your credentials and show them. And I'm like, okay. So I went downstairs where I had just gotten my badge and said, hey, how do I register as press for next year? And they said, well, you need to, tell us who you are and prove that you have some type of press to your name. So I said, well, why don't you Google my last name and AVRant, and we'll see what comes up. And through the power of AVRant, I was granted a press badge. So
I absolutely love that. Like, somehow we've managed to count as press. That is a very thorough vetting process. It really must be. Just look at that subscriber count and all the people they're reaching.
and I saw a ton of YouTube influencers, podcasters. I ended up talking to folks at different press events that I was able to get into. Talk to people in line that I recognized. I'd watched their show on YouTube, and just, hey, I think I've seen you before, and had a conversation with them, or tell people that I enjoyed listening to their opinions or thoughts. So, yeah, it's and CEDIA, just going back up, Consumer Electronics Designers Installers Association. Yes. It is the custom integrators mecca, right? So this is the CEDIA Expo, happens once a year. It does travel around a little bit. But it's a show that really you have primarily manufacturers putting on booths, presentations. CEDIA does training and education. There are press events. There are new product introductions. So it's a great way to really kind of all at once see everything in the latest state of the art in home theater. What's coming out soon, what's new and breaking news. And you really, it's like a playground for everything that's home theater, which is my area of interest. They also have a lot of focus on everything from lighting, smart home, all kinds of other...
home automation in general is a big part of it, yeah. Absolutely.
Outdoor audio is really big, TVs, you name it. But I'm always there for the home theater side of things.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I mean... I was sort of noticing this year, before we're going to have a lot of specifics because Joe visited many rooms and talked to a lot of manufacturers, and we're going to go through a whole slideshow and get really into the specifics there. But before that, we kind of want to give a little bit of like the 30,000-foot view and just talk about sort of the general trends that Joe noticed while he was there. One of the things I noticed just looking at coverage from outside of the show, just what CE Pro and other websites are posting online, is that it seemed like this year in particular, not that there weren't any brand new products, but some years it's like everybody is bringing out a whole new line of projectors, or everybody's bringing out a whole new series of AV receivers, or something along those lines. And it didn't quite seem to be that type of year this year. There were some new products, but it seemed relatively limited in terms of brand new things that were being announced at this particular year's CEDIA. I don't know if that's true, though. You can tell me from in person.
I agree. I think this year we saw it to be more evolutionary than revolutionary. We did see manufacturers, definitely were new product category introductions, and we'll touch on that. But we also saw a lot of new software, new feature updates, new capabilities being added, things like that helped keep moving the industry along. But it wasn't. There weren't as many groundbreaking things as we had seen in some other years.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about just sort of the trends that leapt out to you? I mean, I'll jump in with one more that from the coverage seemed really apparent to me, was that it's nothing new, sending home audio video signals over Ethernet cables. But again, looking at CE Pro and other publications, there was so many articles sort of highlighting AV over IP, and not just what we've seen before in terms of like HD base T, where you're using balance to convert HDMI signals to something that can go over Ethernet cables. This is like full on AV over IP using their own protocols and Ethernet cables as the means of transmitting those signals. So again, you can let me know if that's a theme that was actually true on the show floor there.
100%. Saw a ton of AOIP. And for those of you who don't know, this is very common in the commercial side of things, where you're seeing a lot more very, very long runs where you're sending up to 32 channels over a single Cat6, Cat7 type cable. Right. And it has big advantages, right? You're staying digital end to end. Your wiring runs are much cleaner. It's a much more cost-effective cable in those kind of situations. Connections
easy to terminate.
Field terminable. And it's primarily the audio of the IP that we're seeing as a big revolution. This is something some manufacturers had started bringing. I think Storm introduced this maybe 4 years ago, that they started offering these kind of products, and we were starting to see some amplifiers do it also. But it really hit a lot harder. We saw a lot of manufacturers introducing products with that category. Every from JBL, Storm, Trinnov, we heard a lot about. Audio Control, I think, had some. I think Integra might have shown some amplifiers. But so we just saw a lot more of this capability, and I think it's definitely a direction that we're going to see more of, and it's going to be a trickle-down kind of a thing. I expect to see that.
To me, it makes so much sense for integrators to go that route. I just laugh because I know there's going to be, I mean, not to throw too much shade at them, but like, is there any chance that AudioQuest is not going to have audiophile Ethernet cables for sale? Because it sure seems like, if all I'm getting at is once all the cabling predominantly moves over to being Ethernet, like they're not going to have the profit margins that they used to have on some of their high dollar wires and that. So they're going to have to go that route of the audiophile Ethernet.
The zeros and ones are going to sound so much better through that really good quality cable.
Won't it? Though? Won't it? Yeah.
All kidding aside, though, I do think it is a great technology to see. I think we will see, like I said, more of it as time goes by. The one thing, and I won't share which manufacturer talked about this, but they had overnight between Thursday's show and Friday's show, you lose power, and their smart managed switch that they were controlling all 32 plus channels of their demo sound room theater with didn't keep its connections when it got powered down.
Oh, no.
So they spent probably the first hour or two of Friday morning show trying to figure it out and fixed it with a $50 unmanaged switch. Right? So I spent a lot of years working in networking, working for Hewlett Packard, things like that. So really familiar with the switching side of things. And, there are some switches that, there's an AOIP button on them just for this kind of a reason. It's, that get these settings, find everything, auto detect, as opposed to a managed switch where you're needing to tell it line by line, output by output, what you should be doing. So even in my own theater rack, I've got a 24-port unmanaged switch connecting everything up.
So I did notice, and this is a name that already came up just a few moments ago, but one of the themes that you spotted was that in the past, we're quite familiar with at these trade shows where they're doing these, very high dollar, show off the cream of the crop type of thing. That's where we're here to do at a show like this. And so we're used to seeing a lot of Trinnov processors in many of these rooms because when it comes to just really high channel counts going well beyond 13 or 15 speakers and getting into well more than 4 subwoofers in these types of setups, we're used to being a Trinnov, but you picked up on a theme this year that, Trinnov was certainly there, but not quite to the same extent as years past.
And you'll see as I'm going through the photos, I saw a lot of Storm audio and a lot of manufacturers choosing to use it in their booths to demo their products. I think it's a very reliable, very robust product and platform that has a lot of functionality and capability. And it's a little bit, they take a slightly different approach than Trinnov does. Trinnov really, they didn't have the same kind of presence on the show floor. They had one of the downstairs high-end rooms, and they were really focusing on demoing their new software, which shout out to John Herron, because he's probably spent 30 minutes with me one-on-one, and maybe it's because of my web press badge, but walked me through it very, very carefully. We talked about the technology, capabilities, answered a lot of questions for me, so I appreciate my time with him. But that was where I saw their presence was very strong, and they did have a lot of press coverage. They brought out their new piece, the new
Altitude CI, which is using that A over IP. That's part of what's going on there. Yeah.
So they were there. They were a presence. There were some manufacturers using Trinnov. It may have been the same piece they used the year before. But like I said, a lot of the sound rooms, I did see a lot more Storm audio with a lot stronger presence than I had in years past. So that was great to see.
And if you're not super familiar with Storm audio, like if you're at all into Dirac, they are right at the forefront. They're on the bleeding edge of what Dirac has to offer, because we haven't really seen Dirac art their active room treatment. We know it's coming on Denon and Marantz models. We know it's going to be available for other brands as well. But Storm audio has had it for like over a year, under a year, just around a year.
It's been like it's been almost 2 years, I think, that they've been offering the Dirac art, and we'll show some of their products when we get into the slideshow that touch on that a little bit, as well as some announcements coming from Marantz and Denon also.
Okay. So any other just overview themes that were, really stood out to you at this year's show when you see it in person?
Well, some of them were conversations I had with manufacturers. And again, you get really unfiltered access to a lot of the people that are driving these companies, the reps, sometimes cases the owners, sometimes, sales, VP, marketing folks, et cetera. But the impact of tariffs really seem to be a double-edged sword for a lot of manufacturers. You have some manufacturers that have had to dramatically raise their prices. We're talking like 65% dealer cost type of increases to try and offset the expenses that they're seeing of bringing product in manufactured overseas. And then the other side of that is manufacturers U.S.-based that are just maybe importing some parts but doing all their manufacturing here in the U.S. Are able to scoop up a lot of market share because they'll be able to hold their prices steady. So I'm not going to name any names, but there are definitely some conversations I had very much along those lines with not only speaker but also projector, with amplifier, electronic manufacturers, you name it. That was not an uncommon conversation. I even had one acquaintance of mine say, I'm not even quoting prices anymore. I'll quote you a price range, and we'll see what the price is when the product actually lands. So
it applies to speakers as well, right? There's speakers that are predominantly manufactured. Obviously, some electronic parts that go into the crossover are probably imported, but when the cabinets and the drivers themselves are manufactured, in North America, a lot of that still falls under the USMCA Act. So even though there's all this tariff stuff going on between US and Canada and Mexico, as long as it's under that existing USMCA agreement, a lot of that can be sort of bypassed. So yeah, it hits a lot of part of the industry.
I agree. Another thing we saw was more sound rooms. I feel like this year there I think there were 11, 12, sound rooms labeled on the map. And not just a few years ago, there were, 3 or 4. There were just a handful of them. So I feel like there is somewhat of a renaissance happening around, immersive audio, high channel count theaters. And it's a way for manufacturers to kind of band together and bring their offerings, all of the parts and pieces into one booth and show that all together. And I'll touch on that when we look at some of those.
And when you say sound rooms, these are like plywood enclosed, because there's a gigantic warehouse size type of convention center that we're dealing with here. So it's like built on site, typically out of like plywood construction, and they're just sort of making a room within a very, very much larger room.
Yeah, floor outside. So we saw it everywhere from like a JBL or a Barco, where they've got a purpose-built booth that has a structure and an enclosed room that's part of that, to the SVS had, I think there were paper walls because of the way they were flexing and those subwoofers went, and no ceiling on the top of it. And then, we did see a lot of the 20 by 30 type of constructed on-site, and they kept them all in one part of the show, and that was probably one of the most highest trafficked areas of that show floor.
Cool.
Brightness was another thing. Whether it was in projectors or video walls, man, they were getting bright. Spent some time with Epson, spent some time with TCL, with Barco. The video wall guys. The brightness wars continue. So we'll touch on that a little bit more. And then one negative I saw, and kind of back to that demo room things, was open demo rooms where it was 3 walls and an opening, and and some of these were audio companies, some of them were video companies, but I'm just like, come on, let's put a door on this and close that room up. But
it's the Simpsons joke. Three walls is not enough.
No, it doesn't.
You're
doesn't
still
quite
exposed at that point. So although a real world scenario where there's a lot of people with open great rooms that they're putting systems into. So in some way, although when you're just on a convention floor where there's obviously other things going on outside of your booth, it's maybe not the most considerate to be blasting the sound out of that open wall.
There were some times I felt like I was back in my car audio days, and it was just so loud on that and I'll show you some. So let's jump into some of the...
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, now that we've set the stage there. So, we're going through these in a not like totally the order in which you saw them type of thing, but it's essentially the photos are coming up alphabetically as you sorted them. So we're just going to follow along, and you can tell us what we're looking at. So first, we got some virtual publications on display.
Yeah. So in years past, when I would go to CEDIA, I'd almost bring an extra suitcase for all of the printed material that I'd bring back with me. None of that this year. Very few booths had printed literature that you could take with you, but there were a ton of QR codes. And you can't maybe read all of the Sound and Vision, residential, all the electronics type magazines that were up on the board, but this was in the lobby kind of before you entered the show, and you could scan any of these and download or subscribe to their digital edition types of these publications. So I just thought that was interesting, and
that's a bit of a trend in and of itself, right there.
And just shows how it's evolved. We've gone from getting monthly publications to getting on the spot reporting. In a lot of cases, we're recording this on Tuesday night, just a couple of days after the show, and I feel like a lot of it's already run its news cycle. If you're watching YouTube or Facebook or social media, there's been a lot of coverage, and it's great because it gets out there so fast compared to waiting for the print magazine to come in the mail.
Yeah, you're definitely not waiting like 2 months or sometimes even 3 months like it used to be in the old days.
No.
So who's this handsome devil here?
Yeah, so as I said, the sound rooms were a big part of it, and you can tell when I'm on the show floor early, just because some of those walkways look kind of empty, or some of the booths will be more empty. So that'll just kind of give you a hint of what time of day it is. But like I said, those sound rooms were really kind of one at far end on the right side of the show floor as you walked in, and there was a whole row of them.
Gotcha. All right. So, next up we've got, you were just kind of interested in terms of, you mentioned how some of those places are open, so I think that's what this is, right? A reading of the show floor sound pressure level?
So, on the days when when things are up and running, you spend a lot of time waiting, usually 15 to 20 minutes or so to get into the next demo, right? So usually they'll fit 10, 15 people in one of these little rooms. And I just grabbed my phone and just took a quick reading, and it's 82 dB average at that time. And I had seen up to 90 dB on the show floor just walking the aisles from just, convention center conversations, lots of demos going around, competing audio coming out of so many different booths. So just to tell you, it's not an ideal environment to evaluate high quality speakers and stuff.
I think OSHA says that 82 dB is a maximum of 8 hours sustained before. I might be a little bit off on those numbers, but our movie standard 85 dB as cinema reference volume there, not the peaks, but just what might be sustained. It's like you're not supposed to be listening to that for, I think it's 4 hours, right? 85 dB. I might be off on the OSHA number on that, but we're getting there, right? If you're walking around that show all day long, you're on the verge of some hearing loss.
And once you get into some of the sound rooms, they're playing much, much louder than this. But like I said, that was a measurement in an open walkway.
All right, got to be careful. So we're on to our first named booth here. We got Alcons, and these are going to show up in sort of alphabetical order in case you were putting that together. We're going to spoil that surprise for you. Yeah,
and some of these, I just took pictures on the outside of the booth to remember which room I was going into and out of, because you're spending 10 hours plus there and seeing just so much stuff, and it starts to blend together.
Blends together.
But Alcons is a name that you don't see mentioned as much, but they had a really good demo. They've got a unique high-frequency driver technology, and they were one of 46-plus companies using Kaleidescape as their demo product. We saw just a ton of the Kaleidescape units being used. I'll point out the 2 or 3 that I saw that weren't using it.
Okay.
But it was really a great tool. This is one of the Trinnov pieces in their rack of gear outside, as well as the Mad VR. Some of their own proprietary amplifiers and things like that. So there's that's a stack of money right there. Just gear.
And I saw that those Alcons branded amplifiers that are down at the bottom of that stack, it is a display on the front, and in a static image you don't really know. It just looks like a nice blue circle, but that was like a graphic of an eyeball that was actually kind of darting around and looking around.
Yeah, but so this was very, very common at the show, seeing big high dollar stacks of gear all around.
Right.
Next manufacturer.
Yes, this is a big one.
were our friends over at Ascendo, German company, makes high-end speakers, and you can kind of skip through a couple of these. This first image shows kind of a variety of different amplifiers, subwoofers, on wall, on ceiling. Their new product introduction was their, we'll get to it in a sec, subwoofers, 32-inch, 18-inch. Those are voice coils on top of that box that the 32's in.
Yeah,
just kind of
wound voice coils up
giving you a feel for it. But this was a shared booth across from the sound rooms. Storm Audio was in there. Ascendo was part of it. Movia Seating was part of it. So a lot of these companies were kind of joining together to bring the entire package. But the large cardioid speaker that you see was a new product introduction from them. And they were really
interesting design.
Yeah. So Jeffrey Heinzel, who helps run this company, he and I talked a little bit about this, but it's a 10-inch coaxial speaker with a 3-inch compression driver in the middle. The 10-inch fires out through that waveguide, and then it uses 6 8-inch drivers for the lower frequencies.
Yeah, in the photo, you don't really get a sense of how large this speaker is because those are 6 8-inch drivers. This is not a small speaker. Also, I mean, just on a personal note, I'm not gonna really be wanting to spend a lot of time looking at this. I think this is definitely meant to go behind a fabric wall or behind an acoustically transparent screen. It would be my
100%. They're showing their new carbon graphic fiber kind of a look to this.
Right.
You're looking at a $60,000 speaker there, so that's $180,000 for your front LCRs.
Alrighty. Now this is a massive horn. It looks like that I haven't seen from Ascendo before. What's going on?
So on the other side of the booth, this was their Black Swan and the 28 subwoofer. Again, they're showing off their carbon fiber look. This was their kind of previous top of the line audiophile 2-channel speaker. They did use these last year's CEDIA demo. But it's a very large waveguide type horn on top of it with a 15-inch driver, as well as that square-looking subwoofer is a 28-inch driver. So it's really
and it
some
actually
unique stuff.
It actually is a square driver. It's a square flat driver and not a round, typical cone style driver on that very flat subwoofer that they got there. So I mean, aesthetically, I think that's a great choice because if you're like, most people aren't going to look at that and immediately say it's a speaker. So I think that's a cool
great
choice.
For if you're doing waveforming, if you're trying to stay close to a wall. That thing's not that deep, but it has the same cone area as their 32-inch round driver. So unique design and great sounding. Like I said, heard it last year.
So once we got into Ascendo's room, we can see here exactly what I talked about, those brand new speakers, but clearly behind an acoustically transparent screen that they're lighting up from behind so that you can see what's back there, right?
Yeah, so they actually, Chris Seymour brought a roll-up Seymour screen, and at the end of the demo brought this up so you could see what was playing in the front stage.
Okay.
So those are 3 of the, I think they're the Halo speaker, as well as there were 8 18-inch drivers up at the front, left and right. There were matching 8 18s in the back of the room, along with, and we'll get to these in just a second.
Yeah, I kind of I'm going to save this until you mention it, because it's quite the reveal when you see what the heck was at the back of this Ascendo demo.
Yeah, so Ascendo is one of those companies known for infrasonics, and let's jump to that shot if it's next, I think.
It's coming up, yep.
But I really hadn't had a lot of time to listen to drivers quite this large before. But these are dual 64-inch subwoofers, I believe.
Those are the new ones, right? They replaced their old. What were the puny ones that they had before? They had like a 50 and an 80 something or other,
and now
they got a
it's
64
the
64 and a 100.
Yep, you got it. So these things were massive. These were so big that they had
kidding.
to build the booth, their room around these. And they were playing down to, I think I heard like 6 hertz or something. I mean, just
so reasonable,
ridiculously low. And again, I joked before about my car audio days and being in 150 dB SPL trucks and things like that. This kind of harkened back to that. It gave you a fantastic back massage. You could feel it in your organs. And they played some great demos in this room. So They started out by the Wall musical clip, which was pretty cool, and then they jumped to Ratatouille, and I think this was a great piece. Because this was the scene where the old lady is shooting the shotgun at the rats, and every time that shotgun went off, it just hammered you. I mean, it was massive impact.
Of all the things to be the demo for infrasonic bass subwoofers.
Well, and to be honest with you, I like that shotgun scene a lot better than some of the John Wick blowing people's heads up and things like that. So I appreciated them using it. They did also play, I think, Dirty Laundry, another musical clip from the Eagles. They did play some Ballerina, a John Wick type movie where they were using the flamethrowers, which sounded, I didn't know flamethrowers had so much bass in them. And then they closed out with a scene from Interstellar, which everybody knows.
Yes.
A ton of bass, but it was the entering the wormhole scene. And just, like I said, it felt like it was, digesting your lunch inside you. It was just
sustained bass. And I think didn't you mention that they didn't quite go for like purely linear accurate response. This was a demo.
Had a conversation with Matt Trinkline that calibrated that and said, "Yep, we talked about this being a $1.32 million room, and we wanted to give people that roller coaster ride kind of experience." So this they probably ran this a bit on the hotter side than what you would maybe do in your own everyday listening type of thing, but it was impressive. They also on the video side, they were showing a $400,000 I believe Christie projector and just beautiful image. But they warned everybody, and they went, "Don't look at the laser; it'll burn your eyes out."
That whole thing, they're going beyond 10,000 lumens coming out of that thing. I think, right? So,
but fantastic wild. Picture, very impressive.
I can't exactly call it the most affordable system, though. That was definitely one of those.
And that projector was so big, it was actually outside the booth. This thing's like the size of a refrigerator.
Well, speaking of projectors, this wasn't the one you were just talking about, but the next brand up was Barco, right?
Yeah. So Barco, they had a purpose-built room, and one of the things I really liked about this room, and you can kind of tell from this picture, but they did a great job with the seating arrangement. That it was a well-tiered, well-set-up room where you had good sight lines for the image and the audio. I was actually sitting at kind of like a table on a taller chair at the back. What they didn't do was tell people not to answer their dang phones while they were in the demo. So I took that shot just to share. I'm like, come on, dude. You can get this in a commercial theater. You're at CEDIA. Don't do that.
You'd think this crowd would know better.
No such luck. No courtesy there. But a very, very great demo. Again, they were showing a really nice projected image. They ran some clips. I had not seen the Minecraft movie, and after the clips I've watched, I will not be watching the Minecraft movie. That's just my take on it. But yeah, it was colorful, but it was kind of on the goofy side.
Alrighty, and it looks like there was something going on outside of the Barco booth as well.
So they introduced the 171-inch Runar 4K DCI HDR video wall. Very impressive. I think they walked away with an award from this thing.
Is this micro LED from Barco?
Modular display, so it's all small panels that you put together. I was standing on a carpet near the edge of this thing, and I could feel the warmth coming off of it. It was bright and warm, and it had a great picture. And I'm actually really looking forward to the movie that they're showing on there. I believe that's the new Tron Ares coming out soon.
And I mean, I'm almost certain it won't come across in our YouTube video, which, we're only 1080p, and it's going to be all through YouTube's compression and that. But given the lighting that's there, it's like this is an image with black bars above and below. I'm not going to say that those black bars are, really, really inky black, and you can kind of make out the modules that are going on there. And it's not as though this photo that you took was like right up next to it. So it's not a perfectly smooth, perfectly inky black image coming off of that.
No, but it continues to improve, and I'll touch on a little bit when we get over to the Sony also.
Okay. So, next up, who did we have after Barco?
Went downstairs to our friends at Epson, and they had probably one of the best demos that I saw. I'll talk about that in a little bit. They actually had two rooms across the hallway from each other. One, they were showing the LS9000 that's on display here with a modest system, and they were really kind of trying to drive home that, look, you can get this projector with a good receiver, with a nice, 5.1.4 setup, and you could do the whole theater for $20,000.
Yeah.
And for the audience that you're talking to, custom integrators, that a lot of people feel like, well, I don't have $1 million to spend on a home theater. Well, okay,
Exactly.
how about half the price of a car? That's much more palatable for a lot of folks.
I mean, I was thinking how with that new LS9000 model, $4,000 MSRP on that one. Was that the least expensive projector at the show? I mean, it had to be kind of close to it if it wasn't.
For the companies that I was looking at, I was probably closer to that. This is not a show for the faint of heart or the light of wallet. It's folks that are going to see the latest, greatest, newest stuff.
Right.
I don't know who else would. The Epson has always been a high value proposition type of a product.
For sure. But I mean, even amongst Epson, they've been moving higher and higher in price the last year in terms of the products they've been bringing out. I'm pretty excited about that LS9000. Lower native panel contrast aside, I think there is quite a bit they can do with the dynamic processing. But yeah, they had more than just that going on there at Epson.
Yeah.
But, what are we looking at here?
So one room was that Epson 9000. Across the way, they had kind of a walk through until you got to their main demo where they did most of the presentation. But this is one of the ceiling-mounted snorkel type of, and this was, I believe this was a 180-inch screen, and just I think we were showing Moana 2 in this one.
Yeah.
Flames looked very good. You can see this is a little more light-controlled space that they were in. But impressive what they were able to do. And like I said, the brightness was a bigger and bigger issue, and they pushed this hard from a sales standpoint. The next two images, or three, these were some of the ultra short throw projectors. So you see there's like a salamander cabinet down there
it's
below.
kind of, so they're using an ultra short throw projector to put up a promo image of a long throw projector, because I know the QL 7000 is like, that's their bright over $30,000 before you get a lens for it, because a lens is extra. But the thing actually displaying that image is the ultra short throw projector that's embedded in the salamander stand below that screen.
and that was a 160-inch screen, I believe, and it was lighting it up very well.
Wow.
And then there was another one, I think, was another ultra short throw.
Yeah, they're showing it as the ceiling mounted version of that.
Correct. Yeah. So again, I think that Epson is smart in that they're trying to get projectors just out of the theater, right? They're trying to get them more into the media rooms, more into general use spaces where you can enjoy the view out of a window and then still watch movies in there when you want to. And especially
compared to the micro LED modular displays, like these are definitely order of magnitude less expensive, so it's still very much an attractive proposition in those cases.
But again, very, very bright, high output. Now we get to the fun stuff. So jump to maybe the next image, and you can see me again, and I'm shooting over my shoulder because
gotcha.
Epson brought their game to show a shootout between JVC, Sony, and the Epson projectors. And their focus they had two screens, identical Stewart screens. That one had two different Epson projectors, and I believe a Sony over there. The other one had JVCs and the Epsons and some Sonys. So they really wanted you to be able to see side by side, same room, same environment, everything, how much brightness does for you. So this is F1, which I think I saw 12, 14, 15 different times being used as a demo.
Unsurprisingly.
So popular. But so this is from a seated position. It's a shot of the room. But you can see, and this was, I believe, their mid-level projector up against the JVC. And just the amount of brightness and what the brightness could do for you was impressive.
It does also show in those black bars, it's like that JVC, the deeper black level is evident even 100%. In this photo, which was probably, I doubt you had time to like painstakingly do your exposure and everything like that.
No, this was pull my iPhone out of my pocket, point it in the right direction, and
it did a pretty darn good job. I don't know if it'll be evident again through YouTube, but the brighter images though again show the just how once the black level is going to be washed out anyway, with a little bit of ambient light going on in a much brighter image, than just the sheer brightness is a bigger help.
And then they talked a lot about sports, right? A lot of people, if they talked about the importance of being able to give you a big image You know, it used to be a 50-inch screen was a big screen. Now we kind of scoff at that, right? And this was, I believe, 160-inch diagonal. So those are 4 80-inch screens that you're watching 4 football games on at the same time, basically. So
multi-view.
Yep, and they were showing, again, the different manufacturers right up against each other. And it really was, you know, one of the better sales pitches, because they were focusing on the fact that at Epson, they don't want to just try and steal market share like from the other companies, from Sony does, from JVC or whatever. They want to try and outsell the TCLs and the 115-inch displays by offering a really, really big experience. And the only way you can do that and make it enjoyable is to get really bright. Right, so you know that the QL7000 is a 10,000 lumen projector for about $30,000. Side note that I did ask, and this is kind of on Tom's behalf. I'm like, why didn't you just call it the 10,000 instead of the 7,000? And he's like, and he said one word: it was all Japan's fault, right? So I think their manufacturing side of things made the call on that one.
I think you were just showing off that Epson was using Kaleidescape. That looks like, right? They've got a script that they set up, which is
and this is back over to that 9,000 room. So yeah, some of these are not as in order between the two rooms, but well run. Like I said, the guy who was giving the Epson presentation, we were probably in there for 30 minutes as he was switching on and off between different projectors, answering questions, talking about really how important it is to offer your customers as much as possible, and by choosing the right product for them.
So then I heard that at the show, the physically largest section, I don't know if you can really refer to it as a booth, but so a section there was Samsung and JBL, like Harman, a Samsung company, and JBL, which is part of Harman. So so was that the case? Was that the biggest one there?
So Sony and Crestron were big and up front, but Harman, Samsung was really big, and it was very interesting to see those two brands go marketing everything. So this shot I took because of the AOIP. So if you look in the top corner of that, you see 3 network-looking connections. One of those is an Ethernet, but one is a primary and a secondary AOIP input, and this is their new 8-channel amplifier. So instead of running 8 XLR cables, you run 1 Cat6 out of your processor into this, and you're done. So
I mean, this would be compatible with Trinnov's new Altitude CI, right? You could connect it that way.
Yep. You could do it to the Storm, to the Trinnov, to other Dante type sources. Dante is kind of the catch-all term. You also hear AE67 as the format for it, but a lot of these are interoperable, compatible, auto discovery that just makes it a lot easier to set up.
Okay. So you got some in-walls showing here with I guess is that a no, that's not a projection display, is it? That's a Samsung
TV, right? Okay. And so in this JBL booth, the Samsung was very, very prevalent. I took the shot, because it showed kind of 3 brands all at once in the JBL audio and video equipment. The fact that they were using Kaleidescape as their source and then displaying it on the Samsung TV was just kind of an interesting amalgamation of brands.
But I know the big one for you is Synthesis. It's their top of the line stuff there from JBL, right? So
and I got
going on JBL Synthesis this year.
One shot inside of the theater room. They had a very impressive audio system set up using their biggest LCR speakers, their biggest subwoofers, multiples of them. They were using an Epson 12,000 projector. This was, I think, like a 200-inch 235 screen. Kaleidescape as their source, Lumagen as their processor. So I mean, it looked and sounded very good. One of the unique things about this one is they started with kind of like a historical introduction of James B. Lansing and the Academy Awards that he had won and for his contributions to sound, which I thought was neat. They ran Mission Impossible 8, which I saw a number of times, and it was either the submarine rolling over scene or they were also, some used the Ethan talking to the entity trapped inside of the VR type display, which had a great, very claustrophobic sound to it. They
Well, it's
ran.
kind of funny. It's like the video equipment that you mentioned. By no means is it like inexpensive stuff, but it is far from the most expensive. So it's kind of fun
Right.
that they're like the money's going to the audio system in this demo, and we're gonna have nice video equipment, but we're gonna in a way save a little bit of money there.
Yeah, I think that Epson was in a number of different booths, and they did point out
Right.
if you want to see the 9,000, it's downstairs. The 12,000's upstairs.
Okay.
They ran a clip from Greyhound. They ran a clip from Fury, Gran Turismo, and F1. So they did get into a lot of F1, a lot of racing movies in that one. These are some shots of the LCR speaker and the subwoofer
Right.
that had been inside that room. So, like I said, some really heavy hitting type of equipment.
And we're seeing the in-wall models to the left. I mean, I'm kind of glad JBL. It's like so easy to recognize their speakers now because they've just taken that very characteristic what they call it HDI waveguide, right? That was originated with the M2 mastering monitor, and they've definitely trickled that into virtually all of their speakers now. So I kind of like that it's so easy to recognize as long as the grills are off. Easy to recognize a JBL speaker.
That compression driver is really a technology that gets you very, very dynamic range that for the big rooms that they're doing for a more cinematic type of experience that a 1-inch silk dome tweeter is just not going to cut it.
But from the Synthesis, we had other JBL displays, and this is like the polar opposite end of the price spectrum that we're seeing in the next image.
And again, here's Samsung, JBL, their lifestyle type brand of speakers, subwoofer, electronics, a Kaleidescape there again. But that Samsung big display. So I just took a couple of shots of this room. This was kind of an ongoing one that you could kind of jump around in and out of. But I pivoted, got a close-up of the equipment, the left of the room, the right of the room, just to show you, again, a very affordable system that you could offer to your consumer that looks at home in an open media space that's very decor friendly.
I gotta be honest, I'm a pretty big fan of what it's the Stage 2 series, right? As far as the speakers go. And then their group of AV receivers, which the higher end, I think is the two highest end models in those JBL AV receivers. They do have DRAC, room correction in them. I think one of them tops out at 9 speakers and the other one at 11, something like that. If I'm not mistaken, I might be misremembering at this point. But yeah, I like that they focused a bit on aesthetics, on a bit on simplifying things. But yeah, if we go back, did any of those have the grills off? Yeah, we got one with the grill off, and it's not like the full blown HDI waveguide, but they're still using that waveguide design on the tweeters, even in the Stage 2 speakers at a considerably lower price point. So I really appreciate that coming from JBL.
Yeah, great horizontal directivity on those. So
yeah.
But so that's a shot that's got the MA710 and the MA510 on top, and then the MA7100 HP and I think the 9100 HP, if I remember right, in there. But yeah, just kind of get a feel for what their stuff looks like.
So that certainly wasn't everything that JBL had on display, but it is the end of our little slideshow section there. So if we go on to our next group that we came to here, it's working our way down the alphabet. So we got JVC up next.
Yeah, so these are the more entry-level type JVC projectors. So you've got your 500 and your 700 there. And again, as I mentioned, if you go to the next slide, this was more of a evolutionary as opposed to a revolutionary. But you had their 900 and their 800 and new software for these. So they did show some new capabilities with this. They had the 700 kind of in a walk-up small space that was enclosed where you could go quickly take a look at the image. But then they ran their demos with the 900, and you got to see some of its much more impressive capabilities.
Sure, yeah, that's their top of the line there. So, yeah, we're up to, I mean, is it still Generation 2, as they're saying with their frame? I thought they're up to Generation 3 with the newest update that they just announced will be coming. Or maybe that's later this year, right?
No, this was, I believe, the new one, the Gen 2.
Oh, okay.
I may be mistaken about that, but this was the slide from inside the room.
Okay. So it wasn't just the video side of things there at JVC, but Martin Logan, who owns them these days? Is that Paradigm that owns Martin Logan at this point? So they've done some partnership there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just kind of got a shot of the front stage in this room. Stewart screen. It was a pretty modest 5.2 Martin Logan setup. They're really focusing there on the video, and like I said, the 900 NZ 900 in the main theater, the NZ 700 in the side theater. again, those QR codes so you could scan and get more information to take home with you. But they always do a nice presentation, very well rehearsed, hits the same beats every time.
It's almost kind of the flip situation. Again, it's not like the audio in this room is any slouch, but they're like, no, we're focused on the video in here.
Yeah.
And we're maybe going to save a little money on the audio side. Are those Behringer height speakers on tall stands?
No, that's the actual PA system that the presenter was using. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so that's nothing to do with the demo that you were watching and listening to. That was just what the mic was coming through. Yeah.
But outside of that demo room, they had something that I haven't seen in a while here.
Yeah, so this was over actually a different part of the show. This was the Dynamat booth, but they were partnering with a company that's making a new hush box. And it's specific to the JVC models, but it uses some of the Dynamat product from, again, the Car Audio days in it to keep it quiet. And this was a well-designed, well-engineered piece. Obviously, there's a top in this, but they have a lot of options as far as working with the ventilation of the projector. But, it just really seals it up and allows you to have a much better dynamic range from an audio standpoint by lowering the noise floor in the room.
I mean, it's interesting because the newest JVC projector models have gotten quieter in terms of the fan noise they present anyway.
But I agree with you, but as you're getting bigger and bigger images, you're going to run that laser at 100% output, and it just, the quieter you can get the room, the lower the noise floor, the less power you need out of your amplifiers. It's all in all, I think whatever you can do to minimize that noise is a good thing.
Right. So we've seen them everywhere in the show already. We're going to see them more, but Kaleidescape had their own booth going on. So, that's got a whole series of photos with them. Yeah,
so I did spend quite a bit of time there. They were kind of one of my first stops. As you know, I'm a big fan of the Kaleidescape product. One of the really cool things they did, they had a huge quantum wall display. Quantum was also displaying downstairs, and you can check out their video wall. And then on either side of the booth, they also had, and if you go to the next one, a Sony 100-inch display, as well as...
Oh, that's this one over here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that kind of shows you, from a normal viewing distance, what you'd be watching. But the cool thing was they had in their rack of equipment, if you want to back up one, a Strato E, a Strato M, and a Strato V, one running on each of those displays. So
I see. Okay.
They offered you the challenge of, can you tell us which is the Strato E and which is the Strato M on the exact same 100-inch?
Yeah,
and
that Strato M, people have freaked out about it because it's limited to 1080p resolution output, but it still supports HDR. And then the Strato E is priced at about $1,000 more MSRP and does the full 4K output. So I've been saying all along, it's like, our displays are pretty darn good at taking 1080p and upscaling, and I will take 1080p with HDR over 4K minus HDR. So,
and I'll tell you, I guessed wrong. I did not. I from an 8 foot away distance, I'm going like, I don't know. They look really similar to me. So I did not know the difference between the Strato, M and the E. So that was interesting to see.
I mean, I say great because it's tough for me to convince people that they're not missing out saving all that money, but it makes it so much easier to get in if that Strato M works for you. And like I say, as long as you got 1080p with the HDR, I think you're gonna have a heck of a time seeing the pure resolution difference and only resolution and nothing else.
Correct. And then still using Trinnov in their rack, but I think that's the same Trinnov they've had for a number of years. I did give them a hard time about this booth keeps getting bigger and bigger because they continue to add signage or awnings or hanging signs over it. But they did have the equipment rack there out front, so you can see stacks of awards that they've won. But this is
sure did.
They had a Strato C, Terra Prime, as well as the big Terras, as well as the Strato M and the E.
And
in their other rack. Yeah. So,
right,
and this was, I think, a really interesting comparison. If you go to this, I took a shot from the side where you can kind of see the depth of the players, which I was really surprised about.
Oh, okay. Where we got that? I think that's here. There we go.
There you
go. Found it.
Right. So those E and M units, very lightweight. They encouraged you to pick them up and see what the much fewer connections. You can. They seem very well built still, but a much you could Velcro this on the back of a TV if you wanted to.
Right. Yeah. When it comes to those M or E players, and simplified connections on the back as well. You're not gonna get mixed up of which cable goes where on these ones.
You've got power, you've got network, you've got HDMI, and you've got a USB on there. So it's really very simplified type of connections for it. So. Very impressed. They also spent some time. We talked about their new Kaleidescape AI.
Right, KAI, the search engine.
Yeah. So they did have a computer set up and running, and you could kind of play around with that. And I told them, some challenges that I had with it, just trying it out. The more information you give it, the more information you get back. But it's kind of one of those garbage in, garbage out kind of things. So if you're not phrasing your prompts correctly or not using quotation marks, you're not always going to get. But the cool thing was it would show you which of them movies you already owned and you could watch. You could ask for similar movies to that, but it was a very conversational type of thing. So it was neat that they were showing that off. I don't think it's the end all be all of that product. It's much more about the quality of the audio video and the ease of use for it and the ability to collect and the immediacy of the ability to download. So I think they have a great product.
So one of the more exciting bits of news and announcements that came out of this year's CEDIA is this is by no means a new speaker company, but it is new that they are bringing their full lineup over to North America. So we had at this year's CEDIA Krix showing up, Australian high efficiency, high sensitivity speaker brand, well known in Australia, very successful there. But yeah, we haven't really seen them entering the North American market before, and they came in a big way.
They sure did, and they're straight out of the commercial cinema industry. They're celebrating their 50th year of always making speakers in Australia. So might not be a brand as we're familiar with in North America, but I think that they'll be making inroads quickly here.
Right. And I'm not quite sure this was something from inside of their demo room. And maybe you were just talking about the demos that they were running in there. Yeah,
I just wanted to try and remember what was it I watched in that room and pointing out that not as much of a Kaleidescape type of an interface here.
Okay, right. And what else we got outside of this booth? I'm not sure what these all this collection of Krix photos are showing, but I definitely want to spend some time talking about Krix coming here.
Combination of showing what the partners were, so they were using Trinnov for their processing, MC squared for their amplification, Epson projector, cords for all of their cables. Seymour Screen Excellence was their screen. And they say Kaleidescape on the outside, but it doesn't look like a Kaleidescape display to me.
Okay. And now we get a proper shot of the types of installation. This very much looks like a THX baffle wall style of installation, clearly meant to go behind an acoustically transparent screen. Yeah,
so they had a really cool intro video that kind of walked you through not only the history of the company, but also exactly what you were going to get to listen to inside the demo room. So this is a picture of what was on the screen of what was behind the screen. Right, so you're looking at this on the projected image, but you could see this was a waveforming setup, 4 large subwoofers, lots of space between the LCRs and some spacers. They also showed the MX30i that their demo system was based on and what it might look like during a normal installation. These are kind of really designed to go into a cubby behind the screen and fill up all of that space. So different.
So you were one of the lucky ones to be there in person. How the heck did this thing sound?
Tonally, I thought it sounded really good. The 2 times I listened to this room, I was either in the most left seat or the most right seat. So unfortunately, it sounded a little beamy to me, but that was probably just because I was in front of the left or right speaker. But it was an enjoyable experience. I thought they're very dynamic. So I thought that they were good. I think it would have been better had I been seated more in the middle. But it's hard to be sure.
All right, so next up, we've got one of the brands that shows up at these shows all the time, but I've got to be honest that I don't have a ton of familiarity with them in personal use. We're talking L-Acoustics, which, I mean, when we first see their rack of equipment, it's like, doesn't exactly branding stand out. It's just kind of a black tower that they got there. But yeah, L-Acoustics always has a presence at these shows.
If you've been to a concert, you've heard their stuff. They are huge in the concert sound reinforcement, theme park, educational type of venues, and they've taken a lot of that experience and technology and brought that into home theater. Grab this shot because, again, they were using a Storm audio piece in their rack, but they were demoing some really unique, again, this is probably one of the better thought out demonstration, because what they had in this room was a 12.12.9 system. All four walls had the exact same 3 speakers and 3 subwoofer complement. So this is, I think, a shot of across the left wall, but their demo was not just clips of movies. What it did was it really took time to walk you through in a lifestyle way how that room would be used from sun up to sundown, starting with, watching TV programming and then maybe listening to relaxing meditation type music, to watching a movie, to playing back concert footage, to, even the background audio from a cafe in Paris. And they were able to take the sound and identically move it around the room for a seamless experience. It didn't matter which wall was considered the front wall.
So it's kind of a soundscape type of thing rather than just being purely focused on cinema reproduction.
Right, and they just really showed the way that this could transform a room with sound from not just a movie theater, but to any kind of application that you could think of. Whether you had, if you were giving a toast and you wanted a PA type of a system, or if you wanted, like I said, the background music. It was a really unique and very well thought out. They showed, and it's hard to see because this room is on the dark side, but there were microphones in the ceiling, and they could use that to pick up audio that was, spoken audio in the room, and then reproduce that with reverb and make the room feel or sound much larger than it was. But yes, really unique technologies at play here that come straight out of their very large venue type of applications.
All right, so next up, you've only got one shot of them, and we've seen some of their products in other demonstrations, but Lumagen was certainly there. I mean, MadVR was there. They're the two well-known external video processing companies right now, and I guess they kind of go head-to-head, and they have their ardent fans on either side. But what was Lumagen doing themselves at the show in their demonstration?
Yeah, so Lumagen, I talked with Jim at Lumagen quickly, and he said that they put this together in about 90 days that they got this booth. But they partnered with Next Level Acoustics for all their speakers, Trinnov for their processing, speaker power for amplification. Again, this was another Seymour screen. We saw a lot of Seymour screens, and I think that's really focused on that CEDIA audience. DPI for the projector and Valencia for their seating. Nice experience in here, and I just took a quick shot of this one because, like I said, a lot of these sound rooms, you're in and out of them all day long, and they start to blend together a little bit. But yeah, it looked and sounded great.
Okay. Next bit of news we did cover, Lee and I covered on the show, Magnetar, makers of some of the the higher end universal disc players, kind of maybe the last game in town now that Revon has shut down, but they brought out a couple of brand new players, UDP 800 Mark II, UDP 900 Mark II. I mean, the claim to fame here is that they are sort of the heir apparent to Oppo, ever since they left the market there. So, they were at the show, of course, and we covered in detail those two brand new players on the previous episode of this here podcast.
But this is one of the only place I saw physical media on the show floor. Right? So, they have this rack of movies that you can see there, and there are two players on display. But it was just these guys in SBS were the only place that I saw people still physically handling discs, and I'll tell you a story about it when we get to SBS in a little bit. But yeah, that looked like impressive, well-built players. One of those has a plexiglass top in it, so you can really see the guts of the units. But I wonder how long until these are dinosaurs.
Yeah, it's outright getting tough to get optical drives full stop anymore. So perhaps not long for this world, but we'll be happy that they're still around while they are. So we're going to be talking about Denon and Marantz coming up next. Interesting stuff because. Yeah, so what? Denon Marantz, part of the former Sound United. There is a business deal in place where that's all been purchased by Harman, which itself is owned by Samsung. So I guess Denon and Marantz could have been shown in the Samsung booth, but for the moment, they are still under the Masimo brand name until everything with those sales and deals has all been finalized. So yeah, it's kind of funny that we're going to be talking about Masimo next, but we are talking about the Sound United brands, which are officially going to be part of Samsung in the very near future.
Exactly, and they had a small presence on the show floor, and they were really directing everyone across the street to the hotel where they had taken over big portions of the second floor. They had kind of 3 main demos being set up in there, and the first of which that you see pictured here was a Nautilus and Marantz system.
So that's Bowers & Wilkins, which is one of the Sound United brands, and that's their famous conch shell sort of design and Nautilus speakers in a bright red finish.
Yeah, and sounded absolutely wonderful. These were very, very high-end speakers. This was not a well-designed room. This is a conference room in a hotel. They were using 4 of the Marantz. I believe this, it's not the Amp 10, but it's one of their higher-end 2-channel amplifiers.
Oh, yeah, from that series. Yeah, I don't know the model number off the top of my head, but
the cool thing is that there was 1 channel per driver. So of these stereo amplifiers, you had 4 driving the left speaker on the tweeter, mid-range woofer, subwoofer, bass woofer, and then 1 on the right side. And these, again, this was probably one of the better demos from really a storytelling standpoint. The guy who was running the demo has been with Bowers for 20 plus years, and really kind of told you the story behind the 2 songs that we listened to. What they meant to the recording artists that put these together, the fact that some of these people had these same speakers in their own listening rooms, and really just very well done presentation and sounded amazing. Again, I was off to one side, so from a tonal balance and linearity standpoint, really impressed by them. I bet they imaged great, but it's hard for me to be positive.
And I'm glad to see. I mean, it's they're in a conference room, but they brought some acoustic treatment in there. They didn't completely ignore that side of things for once. That's nice.
Yeah, but very impressive demo.
Yeah.
So this was all part of a press event that was being put on, and so here was the senior VP of sales for Masimo, Denon, and Marantz side, alongside of the head of Dirac. And so there was a big group from Dirac that was there also. And, this was a lot of the press, a lot of influencers there, both the YouTube crowd as well as the publication side of things. But this was this ran after the first full day that I was there. And the nice thing about being offsite is they can stay open later than the show floor. So it has its advantages, I think.
Yeah, so they brought in these trusses to do a full immersive audio setup, a large 2.35 to 1 screen there. So this was the opportunity to listen to the Dirac art. So this was, and if you jump ahead, so there's Phil Jones who kind of ran the demo for us on the Masimo side. Then there's a guy Those look Dirac. Like Bowers and Wilkins speakers as well going on here.
They were, and then if you, I think I have the next shot is the rack of equipment. So they were
Marantz.
running, very familiar to me. This is a Marantz AV10, and then they ran 2 Amp 10s. All of the bed layer channels were bridged at 400 watts. All of the overhead channels were getting 200 watts.
Wow.
Running Kaleidescape as their source. So, I mean, they had some real power. So, stay on this shot for a sec just because it shows the room, the amount of work they put into this. So, very large projected image. That you can see the overhead speakers there in looks like custom machined mounts. This was for the subwoofer. They had 4 15-inch woofers that were just kind of scattered around the room. One kind of up in the front corner, one a ways out from the other front corner, one halfway back, and one a little bit further back in the rear. And the thing about this was they really wanted people to get a feel for what it sounded like on and off with their waveforming. And this is going to be available,
or with art rather. With
the direct art. My bad.
Yeah.
But this is going to be available in all of the Denon Marantz pieces that support 4 subwoofers and up. And so they played a clip from Eric Clapton, Layla, and they would shut it on and shut it off, and they encouraged us to move around, listen in different seats. It sounded really great. I don't think this was the best piece personally, and I know that later on in the evening they came back with some other demos that were requested by audience members that really showed what the capability was for the direct.
Well, not only that, I mean, this is quite a large room. I mean, most people aren't setting up home theaters in a room quite this size with these type of dimensions. And when I'm thinking of direct art, we're talking about having multiple, like essentially using everything in your system that can produce sound to sort of work like a little bit like active noise cancellation, sort of wave field synthesis to some degree, but predominantly direct art in the home release version is focusing is what 200 hertz and down, or is it 150 hertz and down?
150 and down.
150 hertz and down. So I mean, we really are talking about like the crossover region, which is that very problematic region we all deal with. But when you're in a room this large with these big dimensions, you're not going to have standing waves at those sort of crossover range frequencies. The standing waves are going to be down lower. So they kind of maybe did themselves a little bit of a disservice demonstrating direct art on versus off just in a room that isn't necessarily going to accentuate the problems that so many of us have in smaller home theater rooms.
Yeah, and I think it's not only going to be very room dependent, but it's also going to really be material dependent. Where are you running into it? So they were playing, I guess, some techno, heavier bass type stuff. That was a much better demo.
I see.
Talked with some of the guys that hung around and listened to it later on in the evening, and that would have been maybe a better choice to really be able to hear and experience the changes that it was making. But impressive setup.
So we touched upon the whole, tariff issue, and I know that even though they're a Canadian company, and like I said, we've had all these tariff issues going between Canada and the USA, Paradigm is a speaker company that, truly manufactures their own speakers in-house, other than their entry-level series, which, does involve importing. But they've talked on other podcasts about how, because they truly are manufactured in Canada for the, Founder series and the Persona series and that they've actually been able to avoid a lot of that tariff cost. So they had a presence at CEDIA as well, Paradigm coming up next.
Yeah, and this was my Rob H. patriotic picture because it proclaims at the top, proudly made in Canada.
And they are.
Yeah, but showed both the product as well as some of the imagery. I think that you could get shots of maple syrup if you wanted to, but they had a neat racing rig set up in there with like a 4.2 type of a system.
Yeah.
Not as big of a presence as I had seen from them in years past.
Right.
But, so I just kind of got one shot of that as I was going through.
All right. So next up, we've got a company called, Pro Audio Theory, which is another one. I'm not very familiar with them at all.
And this was, again, one of the really impressive demos, well thought out, well planned out, very well executed. They had stage lighting all over that would illuminate which speakers you were listening to at any given time. Okay. They started off small and got bigger and bigger and bigger. But one of the things that they were really pointing out was that the entire price of this system was maybe $83,000, including the surround sound processor and the Kaleidescape. And they said that left you, $900,000 to buy a house to put it in for your $1 million theater.
For the $1 million demo rooms.
Right. Yeah. But very well engineered speakers, as well as they're paired with the electronics. So every speaker is sold with a DSP corrected amplifier for that speaker.
I see.
And they were very efficient in their engineering, in that they would use the same 6-inch two-way type of a speaker as an in-wall on a pendant hanging down from an enclosure, as an outdoor speaker. And I think they got a lot of efficiencies in their engineering as a result of this. They also
economy of scale as well when you're just sharing
exactly.
that similar piece of equipment across many different models in the lineup. Yeah,
and they were, again, this is a company that audio over IP they've been doing for a while with their
I was just going to say that sounds like the perfect candidate for audio
Yep.
over IP when you've got a dedicated amplifier for each speaker.
And they're making this product not only for theater, and they're in the CEDIA audience promoting that, but they also do a lot for theme parks and yachts and other very rigorous types of environments that they're putting that product into. But very dynamic, very it sounded strong.
Okay, so after them, we've got a company I am familiar with. That's Procella. What were they showing at CEDIA?
Again, this was kind of a return to CEDIA for them. I think they'd taken a year or two off, and they've changed some of their leadership within the company. But this was their rack of equipment towards the back of the room, the Procella amplifiers, Storm audio processor. Again, Kaleidescape is their source. I'll fault them that, again, this was one of the open room type of demos,
yes, okay.
so the entire back of it you could kind of look in. But they were showing a video wall with speakers above it. I didn't get a great shot. The picture I took didn't come out very well. But their LCRs were above the screen, subwoofers were below the screen, and on walls for their surrounds and overheads. Despite the fact that it was, you can see kind of the open door there on the left of it, of that image of the booth. They had their subwoofers out on display.
These aren't quite challenging the Ascendos in just sheer size, but these are still some pretty darn large subwoofers.
And Ascendo had some competition. There was another company showing a 60-inch woofer that they were making here in the U.S., I believe. I think Procella was a couple years back more of a darling of CEDIA, and I think they're trying to, like I said, kind of relaunch and getting back into that position. The demo, they ran some clips from the movie Ambulance, and it, very dynamic, really nice sounding setup.
So we mentioned that, Samsung, Harman, JBL, all of those companies together had the physically largest presence on the show floor. But usually if there's one company that kind of challenges Samsung at these shows, it is going to be Sony. Now, this wasn't really a year of a ton of brand new product announcements, at least what I was seeing in the Sony coverage, but they certainly had a presence at the show.
Undoubtedly. So they had two demo rooms that you could check out. One was their Sony Crystal LED video wall.
I miss them calling it Cletus. It was so fun when it was called Cletus.
Bunch of rednecks. But this was a 193-inch screen, I believe.
Wow.
Again, it's an all-modular display. Snap it together like Legos, and it was massive.
Right.
The other shot there, this was their Bravia Projector 7. That demo left me a little bit disappointed, only because there were no seating in it. It was a standing only type of a demo. It was, there was a black cloth at the back, and then you could see light creaking through the roof. And then they also they opted to pair it up and compare it to some of their previous product, and really kind of, I think, downplayed some of their previous 5,000 projector, whichever one it was. And they showed them side by side. Showed the limousine chase scene from Thunderbolts, again using Kaleidescape as their source. But it's, it was that Bravia 7 demo left me wanting to some extent.
Okay.
But however, the Crystal LED wall was a very impressive. I mean, this thing was just massive.
We could see that. I mean, your iPhone was trying, but that is overexposed when it comes to the sheer light output coming off of that.
I'm way outside of the room, and I was trying to get a shot of the rack. Again, the open back to this. Now, obviously, they're promoting their display, but they had a stack of Wisdom amplifiers and speakers in this system. So, in years past, they had done it more of a closed one. I tried to get the shot where it showed the 197 or 193-inch diagonal on this, and just missed it. So that's just your K-pop demon hunters instead.
It is good that they were demoing K-pop Demon Hunters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they're regretting that they sold that thing to Netflix for a song and didn't release that movie in theaters. But
most watched movie in the world.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Crazy. But they did some other cool stuff in this room. So if you back up one shot where you can see kind of off to the right side of this room, they were partnering with a company called Liquid Wall, and they had 3 of the 80-inch monitors set up showing a continuous 24-hour display. I think this is the Farallon Islands in high definition, beautiful.
Is that this image here?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay, here we go.
So they raised and lowered the blinds in front of this, but I spent some time talking with the head, I think it was Liquid Vision, if I remember right, the name of the company, that creates and records all of this. And then they ran the 3 80-inch displays, and we talked a lot about the health and wellness benefit of this. This is designed to run on a circadian rhythm so that what you're watching is correct for the time of day you're watching it. They record like 30 hours of video, and there's background audio to it. It's running on, I think, 3 small computers to feed this and syncing them up and setting up the image so it looks very, very even. But it really did feel like you're looking out a window. And so I had talked to him about applications in assisted living, for example, where maybe you're in parts where you don't have a view or you're in a locked facility. And he said that, Stanford's done research and shown that it can help to improve mood, lower blood pressure, improve heart function. So there's just a lot to be said for this technology as a not just a lifestyle or an entertainment, but also something that's better for you from a health standpoint. So you can see one of the Wisdom speakers in the wall there. That's one of their surround speakers. But this was kind of a multi-purpose display for them.
Okay. So we've talked about them, mentioned them as one of the trends of the show, but Storm Audio had their own setup to show off their equipment specifically, rather than just in action as they were seen in many other rooms. But if you wanted to see the products for themselves standing alone, they did have a display there.
Yeah, so I got some shots of these static units, and they did introduce their new Impulsion 8 amplifier, which is the 2-rack unit that you see lower in this image below their ISP Core 16
Class
processor.
D, I'm assuming?
Yep, and this one is audio AV or AOIP. So it did have...
I think we've got the back here.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, so that image does show you that you can, come straight out of one of their processors straight into this 8-channel and give you, a pure digital path all the way through, as opposed to using all of those XLR or RCA connectors.
They had another stack here too, as well. I'm not quite sure. They don't exactly put the model names front and center on their design there. So
no, I think their industrial design's a little less. Let me see if I can pull up. Yeah, this is their PA 8 Ultra amplifier, their PA 16 amplifier, and then the ISP Elite 16 processor in that rack. And you can see the back of them there, the 8-channel, the 16-channel.
That is a packed amplifier speaker binding post back on one of those amps there.
And I was talking to him, those amplifiers did not have AOIP, despite the fact that the processors could be capable of that. So the introduction of the new one, the Impulsion amplifier, with that, not only is it more powerful, smaller, but also AOIP. So I think that's going to be a strong piece for them going forward. They also have a very nice high-end, just under $20,000 receiver. That's very impressive also. The neat thing about it is you can bridge multiple channels. So you can do 500 watts per channel to their front 3. Really well-engineered company. Both Trinnov and Storm are French companies, interestingly enough. So I don't know if it's something about the water over there, but they really take their surround sound processing seriously.
And then, Storm was obviously partnered up with lots of companies, but they were prominently featured with one speaker company in particular. Yeah,
so Storm had 2 rooms. This one that you're looking at now was a PMC speaker room, so I tried to get a shot of the left of the wall and the right of the wall. I actually enjoyed the sound in this room a little bit better than that big Ascendo room that we talked about earlier.
Okay.
But I think these were some of the, I can't remember the name of the seating company. Hold on, I got it over here.
I mean, it is interesting to me that, so many of these high-end, high dollar as well, custom installation speakers, I mean, they focus on that on-wall or in-wall type of design, not really meant to be looking at the speakers themselves as an aesthetic part of the room. Really,
this
sort of
will all
meant to
go
be
behind
hidden
stretch
and covered.
fabric. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Seating was by a company called Eleanor Rigby, and
Okay.
really were really nice chairs. These rooms, you can't do the same level of acoustic treatments that you would do. So you see, some of the diffusers and some of the scatter plates and things like that. Most of these were high channel count though. So you were seeing, wasn't just, a 9.2.4. These were 11.4 or 0.8.
Well, I mean,
0.10.
if you're going to show off what Storm Audio can do, then you got to go past 9.4.6. You got to go beyond it.
But yeah, the PMC speaker, really nice sound to those also.
So next up, I mean, it wasn't really a truly enclosed, dedicated type of display that they had, but a company we're obviously very, very familiar with. You did drop by SVS and see what they had at the show there.
Did, and had a really good experience here. Got to talk to both Larry and Nick while I was there, and Nick was just killing it on the demos. Larry caught up and showed him how to do a little bit better afterwards, but they were running discs. We got a chance to listen to some of the different stuff that we hadn't heard from other manufacturers. So often they'll run the latest, greatest, and like I said, I think I saw F1 12 or 13 different times in different demos. But SVS, we watched some of A Star Is Born. We watched some Sinners, which I think I only saw maybe twice other places. And I expected to see a lot more. I love
that movie, so yeah.
And it was that music through the different times type of a scene, which was really cool. Mission Impossible 5, so they went back a couple missions. And then my favorite one that Larry ran was Godzilla -1. He
I
played
love that movie too.
He played the scene where Godzilla first comes onto the small Japanese island where the mechanic crew is talking to the kamikaze pilot that's returned.
Yeah.
And boy, did those subwoofers go.
Yeah. It's a great jump scare the first time we get a shot of Godzilla on screen. It's a fantastic jump scare the way they shot that.
The bass on those woofers was so strong. It was shaking. You could visibly see the walls vibrating.
And we're talking PB-17 Ultras here, or Ultra Evolutions here, right? So.
Right. Now, I did ask, I'm curious why you guys are using disc. And Larry had a great answer. And he said, well, that system that you were just listening to, total value on, I think, was like $14,000. That was for. It was a 5.2.4 setup, and using their biggest, PB-17 subs, some of the new Revolution towers, the Revolution Center. They used a Denon A10 or A110 receiver to drive it all. No outboard amplifiers, just receiver power.
That's kind of brave. That is kind of brave.
And they're,
showing at a show like this that, that is not a cheap AV receiver by any means.
No.
But it is an AV receiver, and everybody's always like separates, and they're like, well, you set things up right in the right size with the right speakers, and a high-end AV receiver can manage.
And the reason he said he was choosing to use discs as opposed to a all digital source was that a digital source that could do everything would have been about $20,000, and it really would outshine or juxtapose to what they were trying to do is bring performance and value to the masses, in that you could really select a speaker setup that very impressive sounding. Not only from an impact and dynamic standpoint, but tonally, these are really nice sounding speakers. Couldn't tell how loud the room was, but it's just the noise floor in there was hard to.
And I will say, not exactly the most impressive video setup going on in here. So I mean, on that value tip, it's like, hey, they got to team up with Epson next year, because those were the companies bringing the really relatively inexpensive prices for everything else that was around at this show.
Right now, Nick did tease a couple of things coming out. So
Okay.
we can expect to see the 3000 subwoofer to be the next one to get the to trickle down technology of the dual mono amplifiers built into it. We should be seeing very soon the microphone calibration
they
capability with
promised
the
that
subwoofers.
since those new subs launched, and it hasn't actually quite hit the market yet.
They've got a couple more months left in the year. We'll see. He did hint and tease at possible in-walls coming or architectural type speakers at some point.
Oh my goodness! They listen to me. They listen to me.
Yeah. So I've made a similar request of them several times in the past. No promises, but he said they're looking at that. They're kind of thinking about that.
After the experience of the 3000 in-wall series, which they learned a lot designing, because they went through they had that thing on the manufacturing line, and then they kind of almost went back to design phase because it just didn't quite perform up to their standards, the first design that they started manufacturing, which we never really saw as consumers. They're like, turns out this thing isn't up to our standards, and they redid the enclosure for that 3000 in-wall. So they learned a lot from that, and I hope that does them in good stead if they're going into the in-wall speaker market. I would love for them to do that.
But I think that speaks volumes about a company that they don't want to rush to market with something that isn't up to their standards.
Yeah. So speaking of value, we got another company right after that's known for value as well, and that's TCL. They were showing off a whole bunch of displays,
proudly proclaiming they're the global #1 brand in 98-inch TVs. So you had the QM7s, QM8s, QM9s were there.
The QM9K, that's a whole new series for North America that's coming out there, and I was kind of pleased to see. We had the QM8K that is using those WHVA panels with a little bit wider viewing angle coming from TCL CSOT. When we had the X11 series, right? That total flagship series they had with the X11, that did not have the WHVA panels. That was the traditional VA panels with the narrower viewing angles. So I was glad to see that 9K is taking that WHVA wider viewing angle panel and then adding just more zones of local dimming, brighter mini LED backlights, and falling right in between that QM8K series and the X11K series.
And Sony and TCL were the only mini LEDs really there exhibiting or talking about that at the show from a technology standpoint. And they had quite a few TVs on display. I made the mistake last year of only getting one shot at TCL, so I tried to do a little bit better this year, showing off a lot more of their images. But boy, those TVs, the 115 is an impressive size. I can really see, for the right customer, for the right space, that's a great option.
And in the 7K series, not ridiculously expensive. They got that thing on sale, toot sweet, and it's under $15,000 all the time now for that one.
Right. And you could go over to Costco and pick up, for $1,600, some of their smaller brothers. So. But they did have they were kind of demoing inside the center of the booth two technologies. One was all about using their TV as a almost like a ChatGPT type of an interface, but it was through Gemini. And you could talk to the TV and ask it questions, ask it to show you things in a very conversational tone. And I said, great, I don't need to talk to my TV for that. I guess I got a phone in my pocket if I want to do that. The other thing they showed, and it was pretty cool, and I didn't get a picture of this, I apologize.
Okay.
But on their QM9 TVs was the ability to do a Wi-Fi surround sound system. And it would support up to 4 speakers. So what they had running was a left, a right, and a rear, and a subwoofer. And these were, small tower type, almost like an omnidirectional kind of a speaker.
Interesting.
And it would auto discover. It would run an app, and it would, auto detect where all of the speakers were at in the room and what the acoustics were like in the room. And it, I think the speakers, the left, the right, and the rear were $299 each, and the subwoofer was like $399. So for, you buy a $2,000 TV, you spend another $1,000 on a surround sound system, and I could see a lot of consumers being very happy with that in their family room and not needing a lot more and getting a really good experience. Did it sound amazing? No, but it was loud enough. It was clear enough. The dialogue was clear.
And that you can actually claim is affordable as opposed to being like, our $83,000 system is so affordable compared to others.
And then on I think it was the QM9, you could still, I think it had up-firing speakers, so you could still use the ones in the TV as more like an Atmos bounce type of a speaker with it. So
Interesting.
I did think it was some neat use of their technology.
Well, other end of the price scale, but we spent quite a bit of time on Storm Audio earlier. So yeah, their direct competitor Trinnov was certainly at the show. Yeah, you've got a shot of the back of that brand new Altitude CI, and so I was mistaken when Tom and I sort of profiled this a couple of episodes ago. I was under the impression that this had 8 XLR outputs on the back of it. Now you can connect XLRs, but they've got those breakout, what do they call those, D-sub panels, so you can do sort of like a pigtail design that does add the 8 XLR's analog onto that, but no, this is relying predominantly on that Ethernet connection.
So you've got analog output for 1 through 8, and that's most likely going to go to your subwoofers. So if you're using 4 at the front, 4 at the back for waveforming, you could do that.
Exactly.
You have the AES out 1 through 16 and 17 through 32, 2 different cables. You can also come in AES in 1 through 16 and 17 through 32, so that's a digital into it. They have them labeled as, I think, Ethernet 1, 2, and 3, but it does, underneath that you can see where it says AOIP and networking. So I think that's going to be, your connection for going to, and this is really for use in a DCI type of a Bel Air circuit theater. And if you go to the next image, I think it shows the processing piece that you have to use.
Just before we get to that, I just wanted to mention, since the microphone is shown so clearly there, they were mentioning, that familiar tetrahedral measurement microphone design that we've known from Trinnov, but they were saying it was a new measurement microphone that they're launching along with that Altitude CI.
Yep, and some of the biggest advantages was that there's no on-off switch, so you can't accidentally leave it on. It is phantom powered off of I think a Cat5 connection.
Right, it was a simpler connection path. It wasn't quite so many boxes to go through now.
Yeah, so I think there were some advantages with it for this piece.
You had said on the next image coming up here. Let's see if we can get that going.
The next one, I think. So this was showing their new software, and like I said, they walked me through from 0 to fully set up within about 15 minutes. A much friendlier interface, and this is almost something a DIY type of user can do on their own, as opposed to this being a very integrated, dependent type of a calibration, or at least
which does also help a lot of custom installers out there, because not every custom installer is part of a gigantic team and a gigantic company. There's a lot of single purveyors out there who are custom installers, so the easier you can make it for them to set things up for their clients, that's only beneficial for everybody who might be involved.
But they joked that this was like going from word processing on DOS to going to a current Mac. So it was just it was drop downs, it was click, it was pre-filled type of selections. It was really very friendly and easy to use.
Excellent.
And so here's the both the very high-end Dolby source unit that you would get for your DCI. This had 3 hard drive bays, and this is some of the only hardware really Dolby sells. And then this would be also, if you had one of the big Barco or Christie projectors, they would build those same kind of 3 bays, 4 hard drives into it, and that's what the movies are going to come on. Right? So this is commercial Dolby. This is not the residential flavor. So it has a single Cat6 output plugging into the back of the Trinnov CI, and I'm sure this has been covered ad nauseum, but this unit starts as an 8-channel, and then you can add in pairs all the way up to 32 channels, and you pay like $1,250 per stereo.
We did get clearer on the pricing at the show. So it's $1,250 US for every 2 additional channels that you add on, and the starting price, was it 11,000 US or 12,000? Something right in that range anyway, 11 or 12,000 for the 8-channel sort of starter version of the Altitude CI. I think 11,000
sounds right.
Okay.
But so, in order to get one of these units, you got to be using all equipment that's up to Dolby's, approvable standards. And like I said, this really kind of came out of the Hollywood industry of people having screening rooms at home. And now I think it's, anyone with a big enough checkbook can get this.
Right.
But these are really scaled down commercial theaters that we're talking about,
Okay.
and their capabilities in this. I did notice in the Trinnov, the displays got a little bit better, but not as. I still think the 32 and the 16 look a little bit nicer from a engineering standpoint. And they didn't say they did clarify that this piece isn't meant to replace those. It runs as a companion piece, right? So if you have a need for this, it's about the right tool for the right job. And in a lot of ways, the 32s and the 16s could still very much be what you need for your system.
I think it sort of depends a little bit on your preference of amplifiers as well, right? Because if you want to run traditionally analog connected amplifiers, then it's not really going to make sense to opt for the CIs. So yeah, I think a little bit of your amplifier choice plays into it as well. So yeah, we mentioned them briefly back at the Sony booth, but Wisdom Audio had their own setup there, and it's an interesting type of design that they were showing mounted on the wall there, Wisdom Audio.
Yeah, so this was their new Sage Cinema VCA 16 speaker that's really designed for surround. And this goes back again to what I mentioned before about the DCI theaters, in that you needed an on-wall speaker that can be angled. It's a requirement that Dolby puts on if you want that that source unit. And so they wanted a piece that could serve as a side or as a rear speaker that very much matched the rest of their technology. So they have brought to market this curved line source. So, and it might be hard to tell in this picture, but that whole line source pivots, right? So I can angle that section of how it plays. And here's a cutaway of the side showing the volumes.
Yeah,
for
and
all
doing
the
kind of
drivers.
a curved line source, curved line array. I mean, that has that benefit of as you move farther physically away from the face of that speaker, it doesn't drop off in decibels as quickly as just a traditional cone dispersion speaker, which, in a open room would be dropping off at 6 decibels for every doubling of distance. When you have that sort of curved line source type of display, it's closer to like 3 or 4 in an open room, and then you add in the reflections of the room, and you're only dropping down like 1 or 2 dB for every doubling of distance in that type of design. So it really helps for the larger type of rooms that some of the clients might be installing these in. You're getting that much more even SPL coverage over the entire audience area, which is, when you're getting 18 to 20 or more seats in there, it's really nice
rows,
that you're not having to like blast off the ears of the person closest to the speaker just for the person farther away to be getting a decent amount of SPL output. That's a clever design, I think. I'm quite a fan of that.
Yeah, and then they did say you could use this as your LCRs also in a smaller application, but they said expect this technology to come into the other parts of their line or to be expanded on to go alongside of it. Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, I think we've come to the end of the photos of the various displays and booths that you visited, but you had a couple more. Was this while you were leaving?
So I'm a big dog guy, and shout out to the Denver airport that they had multiple therapy and service dogs that you could walk up and pet while you're waiting for your flight. And I got a couple of photos with me and one of their rock stars there. So I had been missing my Labradors at home, despite that I was only gone for about 2 days. But I enjoyed this and thought it's a nice place to end the photo shots on.
What a cutie! That's great. So I mean, just to put a button on all of it, was there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to mention in terms of just the in-person experience at CEDIA 2025 this year?
No, I think Denver is a great place for this show. The hotels are extremely walkable. The restaurants are very walkable. People in Denver are really friendly. There was a Rockies game, I think, Friday night, and there was a Broncos game on Sunday that I could have hung out for if I wasn't trying to get back home. A shout out to CEDIA and putting together, I think, a very well-run show.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for bringing that coverage for us, because it's, a different perspective. We don't just want to parrot the exact same information that you can find anywhere else. We wanted to take a little bit of a different tack on this because, why just repeat the stuff that you've already heard elsewhere? Having that in-person report is great. We're not finishing the show just yet, but I do want to remind everybody that, AVRant, we're your home theater and AV questions answered. Send your questions to our email address, question@avrant.com. By far the best way to get in touch with us. And I did save one question for this episode with Joe because I happen to know that, he's kind of wanted to weigh in on this subject, but then also the person asking this question is relating to CEDIA and other trade shows similar to CEDIA and the like. So this is from our listener, Henry, who's written to us multiple times before. So we're just going to read his, or I'm going to go ahead and read his email verbatim the way that he sent it in here. But I wanted to get Joe to weigh in on what Henry had to say and to ask here. So Henry says, I am sure by now you've heard about the new Dolby Vision 2 spec. We did cover that. Lee and I just covered that on the last episode, as well as the second generation of Magnetar players. And Henry has some thoughts that go beyond merely the home theater space. In the past, anytime a new high-end Blu-ray player or spec was released, Henry was plotting right then and there and planning how he could swing it in terms of finances. He spent the better part of the last 20 years in this home theater journey, upgrading and tweaking. It wasn't until recently that his focus has really turned mostly to physical media collecting. And part of the reason why is he doesn't fully trust what's going on with the streaming apps over the last several years. Things disappearing off the service. You can't always count that the movie that you want is there, or sometimes they are editing or changing the available movie and you wanted to hold on to the original version. So he's sure that most of us in this home theater space peruse YouTube on anything home theater related, and it got him thinking, are most of the people in this hobby wealthy? Are they rich people involved in home theater, or is it just plain old credit card debt that everyone is piling up? Because it seems like every influencer he sees on YouTube is selling either Trinnov or Kaleidescape, which are not low-dollar items, and he's been thinking to himself, is it possible that there are more influencers than actual owners of these products? Why don't we tackle that side of the question that he had to ask right there? Because from my part of it, first of all, there's a lot of millionaires in this world, and we're not talking like mega multimillionaires, and we're not talking billionaires, but there are a lot of millionaires in this world where several $1,000s spent on something like this is not by any means, putting a hurt on them. But then beyond that, we are seeing some of these things come down in price a little bit. But just in terms of CEDIA for sure and seeing these high dollar items, what's your take on that side of things, Joe?
So Henry, I'm right there with you, right? I've been in this industry, in this business for a long time, and every time something new comes out, plotting and planning, how do I get that thing, right? I hope no one is using credit cards to buy this stuff unless you can pay it off immediately because you just don't want to pay more for it than you have to. I remember when I first got into this business and worked for a manufacturer, my boss gave me two pieces of advice. One, don't ever pay retail for stuff, and two, don't ever buy it for more than you can resell it for, right? So and I've always kind of lived that way when I've been buying and selling all of the gear. When Kaleidescape first came out, those were $30,000 units. The idea that I can now pick that up for $3,000 and have a lot of that same capability shows that
get a Strato. Oh yeah, the Strato M is the Strato M is $2,000, isn't it? US dollars.
I need 4K, but yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay.
So
even though you couldn't tell in the own demo that you said,
right. Yeah, absolutely, bigger numbers are better, aren't they? And then as far as I think, if you're an influencer or you're a member of the press and you're selling it. Are you actually going to buy a Trinnov or a Kaleidescape from somebody on YouTube? I'd say, get to know your local integrator better than that. But they want to cover the coolest, neatest stuff, right? If we were just talking about, the Panasonic $149 Blu-ray players, you're not going to get as many views or as many clicks, and money does make that world go around.
Yeah, I mean, certainly at a trade show, they are going to be showing their flagship products more often than not. And, quite often, those aren't the real money makers for these companies. It's the bread and butter, less expensive products that are in their lineup that often are sold in higher volume. But I think there is another side to this. Like, first of all, a lot of what's happening at expos and trade shows like this is business to business dealings. Like if they were reliant on selling one unit at a time to an end user, like that's not really going to be a sustainable business. They are looking to do business to business deals, which means that, a lot of this expense is rolled into business expense type of budgets, which isn't necessarily like, it's not the same as personal finance, right? There is a lot of borrowed money or investors' money that is going towards outfitting these types of things. And then, honestly, we are seeing a lot of, the big companies buying up the smaller companies. We just saw Revon shut down entirely. So it's not as though, these companies that we're seeing with these higher price tags are like immune from market pressure. It actually seems there's a lot of evidence that there's quite a bit of mounting market pressure at this time. Like when Denon and Marantz can't really make a go of it all by themselves and are, sort of relying on being bought up by ever increasingly larger companies. I think that is an indication that the majority of the home theater buying audience are not mega wealthy people. Like I say, there are a lot of millionaires, but it's not enough to fully sustain like entire companies at this scale, especially when you've got, high-end companies like Trinnov and Storm kind of competing with one another. How many people, even multi-millionaire people, are like buying more than one of both? Like maybe they're buying more than one Trinnov for multiple residences, but like how many are buying like 4 Trinnovs and 4 Storm Audios? That just doesn't seem like it's really honestly going to be the common thing that's going on there.
Agree completely. And a lot of these are really expensive toys. These are not needs, these are all wants, right? We're in a hobby that's all about what's the latest and greatest, and I honestly believe there's no such thing as end game, only because next year there'll be a different end game. So you're never going to reach it. Part of it is the enjoyment of that pursuit. That's fun, and it should be fun. And thinking about what your next purchase is can oftentimes be as enjoyable as actually achieving that purchase.
Yeah, but I've been lamenting that, like CEDIA specifically, so much of the focus, because CEDIA has their own podcast, and I listen to that whenever I'm able, and it's like so much of the focus is on upselling or selling again to existing clients, which of course makes sense on the business side of things, but to me it feels like too much of the focus for CEDIA specifically has turned to that, as opposed to doing everything you can to welcome in as many new people as you possibly can.
So I've got thoughts about that. That if you look at the rise of everyone's watching on screens that are that big, and they're listening to it through earbuds, right? So right. I think you're losing a lot of that audiophile funnel of people that have a real appreciation for audio or video. The next generation it isn't necessarily putting as much value on it. I grew up with a dad that had a big console, and I got into audio at a very early age, first into car audio and then into home theater as part of all of this. But I think that my kids don't own any music. Right, everything is Spotify or whatever, YouTube or wherever they're listening to it, and they will not watch certain things because they'll wait till they come home and they can watch it on the theater here. But that's the very, very small minority.
Right.
A lot of younger audience. It's just they're so that's selling to an existing audience. Yeah. One, that they appreciate it, they're primed for it. Plus, if they bought it before, they have the money to buy something else, right, to make that upgrade. And I think we are in the country seeing a shrinking middle class, so that there are maybe fewer people at a younger age that not only can they not buy home theater, but they can't necessarily buy a house or buy their next car or whatever right now because things have gotten so expensive. So I understand why there is a market for trying to sell to customers that have shown a propensity for it.
But I had to get your comment because, what he was saying about seeing those new Magnetar players, and like his instinct is, oh, hey, that's the latest and greatest of the physical media player. There's that sort of instinct that he has, habit that he formed of like, okay, how am I going to afford that? I know you've had thoughts for Henry specifically because he's been, doing his whole agonizing over should he get a Kaleidescape or not. I know you wanted to weigh in on that.
So again, Henry, I'm right there with you. I have been a big collector of physical media. I've got, a dwindling stacks of DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K discs on walls in this room I'm in right now. I have an Oppo 203 in that rack over there that occasionally gets use. I just bought Godzilla -1 after the SBS demo, waiting for that to arrive, and I'll play it on that because I don't have it on Kaleidescape. Conversely, I also have an 88 terabyte server and a 10 terabyte player from Kaleidescape over there, and 600 plus movies on there. But I started with, my first piece was an Alto that was like $1,800, right? So it's you have to kind of, if you can dip your toe in the waters, but it's very easy to really appreciate and enjoy the Kaleidescape unit. They are extremely easy to use. They are very reliable. If you download it, you're not going to lose it, which is why I have such a big storage.
Right, yeah.
All of my movies are on there. If they go out of business tomorrow, I don't care. Every single movie I ever bought from them is still right over there on that piece of hardware, as long as that hardware keeps working. I'm a big believer in, I don't really like the smaller compact Terras because they're not field replaceable drives. I like the big 4-bay drives. For that reason. Again, both of those pieces that I have were bought used. I did not buy them new. They're very good about their warranty. It's 5 years from date of manufacture. So I think that my experience of buying and owning discs went from waiting for Black Friday or sales when I could stock up on a bunch of movies I wanted. Or, my kids I'd go out and buy them, and my kids would give them to me for Christmas, right? And so I'd open them all up and add a bunch of movies. And in some ways, I miss that collecting of the physical thing.
Sure, of
but
course.
On the other hand, every day when I turn on my computer, open up my first 14 tabs, and Kaleidescape is one of them. I'll just check, see what's on sale today, any new movies come out. Every Tuesday I'm looking at what's new in the Kaleidescape store. And they keep getting better all the time. Every week or two, I'll see, 2 or 3 of my movies, they just introduced better sound for it or new, surround sound format on a piece of movie that you already own, and there's no cost. You just press upgrade, and then download a new version of that.
Yeah.
So, I know he's struggled, and he's made up his mind not to buy one yet. I think that at some point that may change. The sooner it changes, the less it's going to cost you from a disc standpoint, because you're going to have a lot of discs. And I sold off a ton of my 4K movies that I had already replaced on Kaleidescape. I've downsized the amount of storage I have for those.
Yeah.
It's just, I think that the how quickly I can get it, right? Press a button, it's there in 10 minutes. It's very affordable. Almost all the movies, again, I don't like to pay retail, so almost every movie I've purchased was a movie that I had the disc for, put it in, cataloged, and I paid $4.92 for that movie in 4K.
The disc to digital thing, which, oh my goodness, now that those PC optical drives are essentially not being manufactured anymore, the sooner the better that you snap up a USB PC optical drive that's capable of reading the Ultra HD Blu-ray discs.
I've got an Asus drive over there. I'll loan you.
There you go. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was $150 on Amazon.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. No, the price was not prohibitive on those USB PC optical drives. It's going to be sheer availability is going to be the hurdle there. So that's an incentive to do it sooner rather than later. No, it was so funny to me because you've written in previously when you were listening to everything Henry was doing, agonizing, going back and forth, and you're like, Henry, just buy the Kaleidescape at one point. It's
cry once, buy once, cry once.
Buy once,
right?
cry once. But I was avoiding, fully going on board with that. But as soon as I heard him say, it's just my instinct to say, how can I afford the new Magnetar player? I'm like, no, okay, stop. If you can afford the new Magnetar player, you can afford one of the Kaleidescape Strato players, and that's a done deal.
That's good money after bad, in my opinion. So it's just, I do think that it's a product you'll be extremely happy with. It's very well supported by the industry. It's very easy to use. They're super reliable. It's
you
super
certainly saw
convenient.
it used in virtually every single demo booth, to the point that Joe made a point of like picking out the one or two that didn't. That's sort of the way that whole side of things has gone. But yeah, just to finish up Henry's email, he says he looks at what he has now and thinks, it's good enough for the foreseeable future. Inflation and the overall cost of living is not getting any better, and sometimes he wonders if he's going to be able to continue to fund this hobby well into the future. At this time, he doesn't feel the need to upgrade any of his speakers or his amplifiers. The only thing in his system that he is pretty darn sure he is going to require an upgrade will be his AV receiver and his projector. He's currently using a Marantz Cinema 70 in preamp mode and a JVC NP5 projector. Very nice equipment, but sure, we could see at one point. But Dolby Vision 2 is not the thing that's going to convince him to upgrade his AV receiver or his display when it's like, oh, the new displays and AV receivers support Dolby Vision 2, the old ones don't. But he's like, yeah, he didn't find that compelling enough. So Lee and I talked about that. I was saying how, yeah, my first blush instinct on it was, I think, it was a little bit dumb, Dolby Vision 2. I wasn't super compelled by it. I don't think I'm really the biggest fan of that new bi-directional tone mapping in the Dolby Vision 2 Max specification, where the people mastering it chose what the peak light level was going to be, but then your display is capable of being even brighter than that, so we're going to now do the tone mapping upwards to fill up the brightness of your display, as opposed to only looking at tone mapping downwards to, for displays that can't get as bright as the content wanted to. So I don't know that I'm like the biggest fan of everything that's being proposed there with Dolby Vision 2 and Dolby Vision 2 Max, but we can just quickly get Joe's thought on that to wrap up this episode.
From a marketing standpoint, I really think that they missed the point by not putting Electric Boogaloo after the name of the product. So,
sure.
Again, they want to put out something new. They want to keep giving you a reason to keep coming back. Yeah. I think that I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy the product to get it right away. I think I'll wait until I need to make that upgrade and assume that it's going to be there.
It's going to be one of those things
path.
that kind of comes along for the ride, as opposed to being a really compelling thing on its own, is my opinion of it, just reading the sort of description of it. Because again, if you do have like a piece of content, because the content can be mastered in Dolby Vision 2 or Dolby Vision 2 Max, it's not as though that is not going to play on a current Dolby Vision display. It is backwards compatible. You just won't necessarily be able to make use of all the newest metadata in that Dolby Vision 2 or Dolby Vision 2 Max format, but it's not like you're going to get a black screen that says, hey, you got to upgrade everything to play this piece of content. So yeah, I think it's going to be one of those that ends up coming along with the ride at some point. Just like, so many displays that we buy right now, we aren't necessarily buying it for the HDR format that it supports. It happens to have what it happens to have, and we want HDR to be supported in some way, and it will be, but yeah, it's not necessarily the format specifically we're looking for. Okay, well, you know what? I think we're going to call that an episode. What do you say, Joe?
I think we hit our 2-hour mark.
We sure did. What do you know? It always happens when Rob H is around doing an AVRant episode. But yeah, to wrap things up here, I'll remind you once again, question@avrant.com is the place to send your questions. We answer everything that is sent to us, first in, first out, for the most part. I mean, predominantly so. So yeah, that's by far the best way to reach us, question@avrant.com. All right, well, Joe, thank you so darn much for doing this report for us, for coming back and visiting us again, doing this special breakout episode. Any final thoughts that you wanted to leave us with for CEDIA 2025?
Absolutely, my pleasure. I enjoy being on the show anytime I can, and thank you to both yourself and Tom for continuing to answer questions. Right? I really love about this show that it's very home theater focused, and it really, there's not a lot of other people you can talk to about this kind of stuff. So I'm glad you guys put this out there.
Actually, that was a great comment that you made off air about CEDIA, is that, so many of the people that you talk to, it's like, it is familiar faces, whether you've seen them in person before or you're seeing them through their YouTube channels or you've heard their voices on podcasts as guests. But it's like, it is a pretty tight-knit community, honestly. It's a pretty limited number of people that are really at the forefront of all of this home theater technology and the design and installation of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much once again. I hope everybody has enjoyed this 4.5 hours of AVRant this week. Gone absolutely nuts. But when Tom's away, who's going to stop me? Who's going to prevent the running time from just going absolutely ridiculous? So I just want to say, on behalf of Tom Andry, on behalf of Joe Klusnick, this has been AVRant. My name is Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.